A few weeks ago, the TF2 community got hit with one of the biggest reality checks it's faced in years. This came in the form of a video uploaded by Zesty Jesus. He presented extremely compelling evidence that around 2/3 of TF2's total concurrent player count is made up of bots, though the vast majority of them not the cheater variety. As to be expected, the community hasn't taken this revelation well, and really, they shouldn't. Morale for the game was already at an all-time low. Another roundhouse kick to the rocks is not what we needed right now. But you know what? I'm happy that this information is now common knowledge. Sure, the video was a big fat Taco Cabana shit on a player base already rife with doom posting. But like all Taco Cabana shits, it had to come out. The botting crisis has been an issue for years. The game is quite literally unplayable for over half of its uptime, and that's no exaggeration. But all of you are watching a TF2 channel, so there's no doubt you're aware of that by now. We don't need another bot crisis regurgitation sesh that may as well be excerpts from a bingo card created by ChatGPT. Vac bans don't work, billion-dollar company, bots are bad, okay. I'm not here to waste your time. What I actually want to talk about is what we can do about the position we're in today. Yes, TF2 is in violent waters, but we've got two options here. Allow the tide to wash us away into the abyss, or grab a paddle and start rowing. We tried this before with the original Save TF2 movement, and while it didn't accomplish our goals of a mass aimbot crucifixion, the game was in a better state after its inception. Being the forward-thinking marvel of a statistician I am, I ran a poll exactly 1 year after Save TF2 had concluded, and the majority of the 24,000 respondents agreed that bot encounters had decreased by about a third. Additionally, there was also a patch that implemented the ability for both teams to kick at the same time, which expedited the bot kicking process by 100%. Yeah, that also applied to bots kicking human players, but that was already happening under the old system. It simply took all the vote kicks that were going to inevitably happen and doubled the rate at which they did. Now, in fairness, this could all be correlation, not causation. And we can argue that. But one thing's for sure, that debate isn't happening over sitting on our asses doing nothing. Obviously, these changes weren't enough. If they were, you wouldn't hear a peep about this issue anymore. But Save TF2 was worth doing. And I think it's worth overdoing too. One of the more unforeseen consequences of the movement was that it in many ways pacified the community. We got our tweet, rode the copium high, but by the time reality crashed everyone back down to earth, no one was motivated to keep the train going again. In fact, you'd often get definition of insanity by either Albert Einstein or Michael Mando for even pitching the idea in the first place. But, you realize the argument goes both ways, right? For half a decade, our strategy has been to do nothing and get nothing. But the one time we all collectively decide to break that streak, we got widespread news coverage, #1 trending on Twitter, and it likely influenced a couple of patch notes that incrementally improved the state of the game. One of these roads is more insane than the other to keep going down. Yeah, Plan A didn't work. But we got 25 fucking letters of the alphabet left. Let's try a couple more before throwing in the towel. Community figureheads are still down to roll the snowball and get back in the game. We're ready to go. We should try Save TF2 again. Now, this begs the question of what can we do? We could try a 1-to-1 recreation of the original campaign, but sequels don't usually outpace the original unless a cast member dies, and we played that card too early. One of the more common propositions is a mass consumer boycott, with everyone refusing to buy items from the in-game shop until Valve gets their shit together. And while I respect the principle behind voting with our wallets, I think this would be a horrible idea. Let's put ourselves in the shoes of Valve for a moment. This is a company that's maintained a near monopoly on PC gaming distribution. They have an infinite money generator, and much of the company's recent developments have just been new ways to expand their bread and honey. TF2, revenue-wise, is not a high priority for Valve. The cash flow it provides is pennies compared to what they bring in through Steam. Valve aren't blind. They know the bot crisis is costing them money, but in their eyes, they view the continual upkeep of the game to be an endeavor not worth pursuing. And you're telling me that the best way to get Valve to pay attention to a comparatively minuscule asset would be to decrease its profitability even more. I'm not claiming it's impossible that this could be a catalyst for change, but we're playing with fire here, and it goes against the foundational basis for why we rallied together in the first place. What do we have to lose? Even if we were to grant the premise that a boycott would motivate Valve to get their ass in gear, most dedicated players who wail out on the game use third-party sites where Valve gets no kickback. And often the people who don't use them are newer players who don't interface much with the community, and therefore likely wouldn't even hear of the movement, much less agree with it, much less participate. This idea has been floated around a lot recently, but I think everything about it, from the logistics to the community sentiment to the potential outcomes, are all fundamentally flawed. I don't blame the rationale behind it. Everyone's desperate for change, and we're all looking for straws to grasp at. And that, gentlemen, includes me. Everyone's a critic. Throwing stones is easy. Actually putting forth a suitable alternative, that's harder. Much harder. Especially when there's no shortage of people frothing at the mouth for an I told you so if things don't work out. And yeah, it probably won't work. And that's not an encouraging platform to operate from. But what if I told you that another game had dealt with a similar problem years ago? What if I told you that the community of this game initiated a movement to make their voices heard? And what if I told you that it not only worked, but went down in history as one of the greatest case studies on gamers rising up, and that we have the potential to replicate it ourselves? That game is World of Warcraft. Okay, I know the vast majority of you have heard of WoW, but probably never played it extensively, so for brevity's sake, I'll drop the cliff notes only. Warcraft released back in 2004 with the base version of the game, often referred to as Vanilla WoW. It was a massive phenomenon, it redefined the MMO genre, blah blah blah, best game of all time. From there, Blizzard would begin to release expansion packs on a bi-yearly basis to give the player base more content to binge. The first two expansions, the Burning Crusade and the Wrath of the Lich King, were extremely well received, and gave Blizzard an ever-increasing sub count for over 6 years. But everything changed when the Fire Dragon attacked. Cataclysm was WoW's third expansion, and it's commonly recognized as the moment where the game started to go downhill. The old world blown to shit. The leveling journey unrecognizable. Community-oriented systems? Who cares? Mists of Pandaria, the following expansion, would stray even further. Now you could flat out buy max level characters and clear every raid without saying a word to anyone. While a good chunk of the player base were apathetic to these changes, the game had been radically altered from how it once was. And for the first time ever, WoW's sub-base began to tank. Their new design philosophy alienated a lot of WoW's established player base, and lots of them wanted to go back to the old days. During a BlizzCon Q&A in 2013, a hooded Avenger would step forth to ask the question that everyone's been wondering. The response would go down in infamy.
Have you ever thought about adding servers for previous expansions as they were then?
No. And by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't.
You think you do, but you don't. Straight from the mouth of WoW's head honcho. But little did J. Allen Brack know that the community was about to make him eat those words a year later. In November of 2014, WoW would release their 5th expansion, Warlords of Draenor, the worst expansion in WoW history by a fucking light year at the time. The main draw of the expansion was no different than a fucking Facebook game, obviously designed with a daily active user metric in mind. Oh, and more pay to win on top of it. Like expansions prior, people were willing to tolerate the bullshit so long as the content releases were fun, but that didn't happen with WoD. Feature after feature were left on the cutting room floor. Even the devs mocked that fact in-game. WoW wasn't just mangled beyond repair, there was nothing to do. It was such a colossal failure that the game saw its largest decline in history over a half-year period. This even prompted them to stop publicizing their sub numbers entirely, claiming that there were better metrics to judge the health of the game. Players, now more than ever, were craving a return to Vanilla WoW, and if Blizzard weren't gonna do it, that meant someone else had to. Where there's demand, there will always be supply, regardless of legality. And this was a running theme for Warcraft. There were lots of illegal private servers unsanctioned by Blizzard that aimed to recreate versions of the game that were no longer available, but they'd be rife with bugs, corrupt owners, or low population sizes to where they never really took off in a big way. All of that changed in 2015. At the lowest point in the game's history, the world would be met with the greatest private server ever created, Nostalrius. It was everything that WoW once was. A thriving community, an expansive world, and no in-game advantages through the swipe of a credit card. It was a near perfect reboot. At its peak, the Nostalrius server had 800,000 registered accounts with over 150,000 active players. For an illegal server that was never promoted nor endorsed by Blizzard, those were incredible numbers. Too incredible to last. On April 5th of 2016, the Nostalrius devs were hit with a cease and desist by Blizzard. A few days later, the server shut down, and everyone logged in one last time in collective sorrow before the doors closed forever. Fate was sealed from that day forward, and the prospect of a home for these old-school WoW fans became nothing more than a pipe dream. And that's where the story of Vanilla WoW ends. If they were bitches! Immediately after the Nostalrius shutdown, the blowback from the community was intense. The conversation around legacy servers started to ramp up, and so too did criticism of Blizzard's hands-off philosophy. And keep in mind, this was still in the midst of the Warlords content drought, so players were doubly angry. This manifested in content creators of all stripes taking to the upload tabs to make their disdain known. But the Nostalrius team, chads they were, decided to try to make the most of this bad situation that was primed for publicity. On their behalf, they created a petition to gauge the interest of legacy servers, which via their own data, they knew was high. The petition was stamped into every forum under the sun, and promotion efforts on the part of WoW content creators quickly surfaced. The notable big dog was Sodapoppin, one of the biggest streamers in the world, who shilled the petition to more viewers than anybody. The signatures started pouring in, but at the end of the day, it was still an online petition, and those go about as well as bare-knuckle fighting a hippo. But the rallying cry was loud enough to spark the attention of one notable figure, Mark Kern, the team lead of OG WoW. He pledged that if the petition hit 200,000 signatures, he would personally print out every name and deliver them all to Blizzard HQ itself. That quota was reached, and Mark kept his word. 11,000 pages and $800 of printer ink later, Blizzard now held the physical manifestation of the philosophy they acted antithetically towards for years, and they wouldn't forget that. The next month, Blizzard would meet with the Nostalrius developers to discuss the financial and practicality concerns behind the creation of legacy servers. They made no promises, and publicly, nothing came of it, but the community was content with them at least entertaining the discussion. That was, for a bit. After the Nostalrius meeting, Blizzard stopped engaging in the legacy server discussion for over half a year, and after they confirmed that they wouldn't be broaching the topic whatsoever during that year's BlizzCon, people's expectations began to flounder. Even more concerning was the Nostalrius team had not been contacted at all within this time frame. The fanbase wasn't confident, and neither was Nost. Feeling betrayed, the team decided to go rogue. They weren't confident that Blizzard was taking the demand for Vanilla WoW seriously, so they transferred their codebase to a different private server so that fans of the old game could still have a home. They took down the fan server, got in talks with the developer of the initial IP owner, but after months of zero communication on their part, decided to reinstate their project as an act of defiance. Well gee, where have we heard that before? This new, quiet paradigm casted doubts on the supposed enthusiasm that Blizzard had for legacy servers, with many now concluding that this was nothing more than a PR move to sedate the community outcry before the release of Overwatch that same month. That was the narrative for a very long time. Blizzard pulled enough strings to get people to shut up, but not enough to actually give them what they want. That also sounds familiar. Optimism for a Vanilla WoW experience was now in the gutter. Blizzard refused to listen to the community, and they played us all like a fiddle. Or so we thought. Cut to BlizzCon 2017. It's been a year and a half since the Nostalrius meeting. The Warcraft showcase is on, hosted by J. Allen Brack. we all remember him. And in the most beautiful case of dramatic irony I may have ever witnessed in my life, the same man who uttered those infamous words years ago threw a curveball that no one saw coming.
But I understand that for some of you, your favorite flavor is vanilla.
The community won. Blizzard finally listened, and Legacy WoW was officially a reality. But that's not all. It was so beyond their expectations that they went on to release the Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, and even Cataclysm later this week, alongside a vanilla WoW hardcore mode and a brand new dedicated classic WoW expansion. And it all started here. I think we should give this a try. I get it. Online movements are fickle and rarely amount to anything. If you have reservations about this, I don't blame you. But people said the exact same shit about this Legacy WoW campaign almost a decade ago. Imagine if they listened to that devil on their shoulder. Imagine if they got as pessimistic as we have and refused to try again. None of this ever happens. Why not do another Twitter campaign to garner support? Get those trending tabs, get those media articles, get the YouTuber reaction videos. We have the ability to potentially make a difference. It might only be a 1% chance, but how many of you have unboxed Unusuals? 1% can happen. The original Save TF2 had noble intentions and ran relatively well, all things considered. But there were a lot of creators who were hesitant to join. They feared attaching their name to something that could very well end up as a never-ending torrent of vitriol. I think Octo characterized it best at the time.
I know similar online movements and attempts to get the attention of big companies over social media, particularly Twitter, tend to turn pretty volatile and can be more destructive than constructive. And I mean, I was genuinely worried that a similar thing was going to happen to the Save TF2 movement, and I was really hesitant about including my name in a very possible shit show, despite the emphasis by the organizers to keep it peaceful.
There's truth to what he's saying. If we wanted any chance in hell at having the movement actually work, we needed to optics max. Be palatable enough for fans of the game to join, be palatable enough for content creators to promote it, and be palatable enough for Valve to actually hear us out. That's why it came out the way it did. But I think the criticism that we overcompensated in the other direction is, at least in part, fair. Let me put it this way. There should never be a moment where someone unfamiliar with TF2 clicks on the hashtag and doesn't immediately know what the problem is within 5 seconds. That, unfortunately, did happen. But we can rectify that very easily if we go again. I personally have no issue with people using the campaign to share fond memories about the game or talk about how much it's influenced their lives. But adding a snapshot of some colonized bot servers alongside them would do wonders in driving the point home for the old heads who haven't kept up in a while. The more people we can get on our side, the better. And making that problem very apparent while simultaneously remaining cordial is the perfect model for a second go. TF2's concurrent player count might be one big paper tiger, but concurrent players and concurrent fans are not one and the same. We all see the views it pulls in. There's a deep appreciation for the game that's transcended its current predicament. 250,000 signatures was enough for Blizzard to hire who knows how many people for who knows how many hours to recreate an entire MMO. We just want a functioning anti-cheat. Comparatively, a much easier demand to fulfill, though I don't doubt it's harder than we think. The choice is very simple. We can grab our Sneeko chairs and watch the game get plowed, or we can do our best to intervene. And with May 26th right around the corner, the 2-year anniversary of the original movement, there's no better time to band together than now. Who knows, maybe some good will come from it. Maybe we have a cabal of content creators already down for another go. Maybe we have connections that could bolster the campaign's legitimacy. Maybe, just maybe, we're planning something.